everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review number 200. Just a quick note here for viewers of my series. I had another game that I was going to do number 200 for, but I don't want to do that game because the game I'm going to show you here to me is a very special game. I think that it could be maybe talked about again sort of maybe towards the end of the year. I mean, I just have some recent plays of this, but I'm going to review now Trains. This is from AEG. This is sort of a reprint. I think it's a redoing of a game that was originally published in Japan. I don't know what the differences are, but I believe they have made some changes to this. Now, if you've not heard of this, this is a deck building game with a board. Okay, so it's like Dominion or Ascension or something like that, where you're building your deck, changing your cards out in your deck, but it's also got a board where you're building your network of trains and routes and things like that. So before I talk too much more about it, let me just show you how it plays, and then I'll come back and tell you why I think this is so great. So I just want to give a quick component note here. You see you've got the rule book here. We've got a board here. It's actually double-sided. And then you've got your insert here. So on the left-hand side, you've got all the cards that you're always going to use in every single game. You've got your starting deck cards and things like that. You've got the cubes here, which are basically used to build your network on the board here. You've got these little white stations here. These are going to help you score victory points. And then on the right-hand side, we've got sort of the interchangeable cards that will be different every game. So the game comes with these randomizer cards. You're going to shuffle up and deal out 8 of these. So in addition to these cards, which will be in every game, you'll take 8 of these stacks here, just like in Dominion or Thunderstone, and then you'll set these out and then be able to purchase these and use these in the game. So the cool thing about this is there's lots of room. So that means they're going to add lots of cards, and this game is definitely ripe for expansions, but let's go into how you play it. So here we've got the board here. I've got the Tokyo map here. Everybody's going to take one of their cubes and put it on the 0 marker on the track there, and then in turn order, players are going to basically mark off a spot where they're going to start their little train network from. You can't put a spot in the sea. You can never put any of these cubes in the sea, and you can't start off on one of these victory point spaces. So if you look at the terrain real quick, you can see you've got sort of plains areas, some plains with rivers, different cities here, and then you've got these victory point spots, some mountains. These are going to cost different amounts of money to sort of expand your track and try to accumulate areas that are going to be ripe for victory points towards the end of the game. Now, if you look down here, you can see this little wall here, and then over here you've got these other walls here. You can't actually expand through these walls, so you've got to kind of go around a little bit. So a fair chunk of your victory points are going to come from the map here. So if you've got a cube here, you're going to get 3 victory points. Now you've also got these station markers here. And if you can see here, you've got different types of cities. These gray ones that have sort of 1 station, these reddish ones with 2, and then these orange ones here with 3. So during the game, you can build stations equal to the number of stations depicted on the spot, and you're going to get various amounts of points for having your cube in a place that has stations. So if you've got a cube in an area like this spot down here with 3 stations, you're going to get 8 points. And you can have as many cubes from different players as you want inside an area. So at this point, yellow would be scoring 8 points, and then if blue kind of built all the way down here, then he would also be scoring 8 points at the end of the game. So the way that you're going to be able to expand out on this board is basically through a simple deck building process. Now here you can see a starting deck. So let's take a look at these cards here. So very simply, you're going to have 7 of these normal train cards here. And on the left hand side, you can see this is the amount of money you're going to generate per turn. So if I drew a couple of these, let's say I drew 3 of these and I played them on my turn, I generate 3 coins for spending on different things. On the right hand side, you've got the costs actually to buy that. So if this was another type of card in a display in front of us and I wanted to buy one of these, it would cost me 1 coin to buy that. So you can see here this lay rails card here. So this is actually 0. When you play, it doesn't generate any money. But if you wanted to buy more copies of these, and you will, it's going to cost you 3 money to put into your deck. And they're also going to do some different effects, which I'll talk about in a minute here. But basically, you're going to draw 5 cards, play all the cards that you want, and then maybe purchase other cards, which I'll show you in a second. Or in the case of using lay rails here, you can actually lay a track on the board. And basically, the different areas are going to cost you different amounts of money. So the plain area is not going to cost you anything. Anything with a river is going to cost you 1 coin. Cities are going to cost you 1, plus however many stations are in there. So if there are already 2 stations here, it's going to cost you 3 total coin to get in there. The other thing that you're going to see here is you're going to see this little waste symbol there. So whenever you lay rails, for the most part, and whenever you actually build a station, you're going to take one of these waste cards here, and there's a giant stack of these here, and other different effects will make you take these, and these are basically just dead cards that clog up your deck, and you're going to want to get rid of these. And some of the cards that you can buy will actually combo off getting rid of these. They'll generate money for them or make you let you get rid of them easier. So let's take a look at the basic cards that come with every game that you're going to play of this. So here we've got the 8 cards that are going to be in every single game. You're also going to have 8 other stacks of cards that are going to be random and different every game. So let's take a look at this one here. So we've got the Limited Express Train. It costs 6 to buy this, but this one's going to generate 3 money instead of 1. You've got the Express Train, which is a little cheaper, but it generates 2 money instead of 1. You can buy more of these lay rail cards. I'll talk about that in a second. And then you've got these 3 yellow ones here, and these are basically just pure victory point cards. You can see this one costs 3. When you play it, it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to generate any money. But at the end of the game, these are actually going to be worth 1 point. But you can see it says whenever you buy this card, you've got to take a waste into your hand. And you've got the tower here. It's going to give you 2 points at the end of the game and cost you 5. And then you've got the skyscraper here, 8, and it's going to give you 4 points. Finally, we've got some more of these station expansions. You start with one of these in your starting deck, and then you're going to buy this for 3. And when you play this, you can go ahead and build a station out on the board here. So you can see, you can build stations out wherever you want. So you can sort of build it preemptively if you think you're going to be able to move in there, even though that's a little bit risky. You might, want to do that sometimes. So you can just put a station down, plop it down, and then again, you can see here, you're going to take a waste into your deck. You're going to get lots of waste cards, and this is going to be a big part of the game, is managing your waste. So your turn is very simple. You're just basically going to draw 5 cards and play them. Now if you want, you can kind of forego your turn, and if you, for some reason, let's say you drew a hand of like 3 wastes and then 2 other cards, you can actually skip your turn and basically just discard all the wastes back to the supply there and sort of get rid of those. Now that's not very efficient. You want to basically buy, there's other cards that will let you get rid of waste, like I said, and turn them into money. That's a much more efficient way of doing it. But if you get a bad hand, you can take that turn as sort of a pass to discard some of the waste. So when you generate money here, you can buy as much as you want. It's not like Dominion where you get basically 1 buy and 1 action. You can do as much as you can here. So maybe you generate a bunch of money, and then maybe you buy 1 card, and then maybe build one more cube, 1 route onto the board there. Now you've always got to play a card here that has this little lay track symbol like so. Now there are more improved versions of this, so if you see the steel bridge here, this one lets you lay track, and you are going to take a waste just like the normal one, but this one says the extra cost for laying rails over rivers is nullified, because remember, there's different sort of value amounts that you have to pay to extend your route here. So again, these planes are free, these are 1, and so this way you can play this without have to actually, paying any money here. And there's other cards that will let you ignore the cities, let you ignore the cost of the mountains. Now if you lay a cube where there's somebody else there, so let's say, yellow's in here, let's say yellow's in here there, and then blue comes down and puts that down like so. So you've got to pay the base amount for the hex, plus $1 for each cube, plus you have to take an additional waste anytime you lay a cube down in the spot where there's already somebody else's cube there. So that basically is pretty much the turn. You're going to play cards, you're going to generate money, you're going to try to buy any of these other cards, maybe some of these basic cards, lay down track, place some of these stations in areas where your cubes are and maybe away from where there's other people. And so you're going to play until you run out of 4 of these stacks, except for the waste one. You don't consider that. If you run out of that somehow magically, it's not considered. But if you run out of 4 stacks of cards, that's going to end the game. Or the game will end when somebody has put out all of their cubes on the board, or if all of the stations are out on the board, then the game will immediately end. So we're going to total up the points. If you have a cube in these spots here, you're going to get extra points for being in cities where there's more stations. It's 8 for 3, 4 for 2, 2 for 1, and then if you're in a city that doesn't have any stations, you're not going to get any points for that. And then again, you're also going to count up all the points of these yellow cards that are in your deck. And there are actually cards that when you play them in the game, every time you play them, they're going to generate points. So you're going to keep track of a few points that you're going to score during the game, and then kind of, use this as a scoring track as you total up everything on the board and all of the yellow cards in your hand and in your deck and in your discard pile. So that is the game. Very, very simple, very much like Dominion or something. Now, again, the lot of the interactions and the cool things are going to happen on these different cards. You're going to be able to draw extra cards, trash cards, out of your hand, look at cards, sift through and draw until you get some money cards. Again, there's cards that will let you, lay down track and ignore some of the costs, cards that will let you deal with the waste cards and so forth. Now, I kind of went into this game being a little bit trepidation and thinking that it would be very simplistic and then too simplistic of a game. So let me jump back to my talking head there and give you some thoughts on it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. I think this is probably the best game of the year that I've played so far. Let me back up a minute. So basically, you've got a lot of things that are sort of trying to race to the end of the game. You can get rid of your cubes. You can buy up stations or place stations down. You can start buying up lots of cards and get a lot of those victory point cards. So the game has a lot going on top of all that deck building. Now, initially, I was sort of told by some people, oh, it's basically Dominion and there's a board kind of tacked on. It's very simple. That's not even true, not even the case at all. You really have to consider how you're building your deck in relation to the board itself. So you want to be able to get some extra cards to flop those stations down. You only got one card that lets you put a station down. You need to get those into your deck early. You need to get good cards that let you get through your deck and manage your deck, and in some sense kind of feels like you're managing your train company with those cards. So you've got those kind of two divergent kind of things going on, where you want to get cards that'll let you interact with the board and get rails down and get stations down and things like that, and get out to places first, so that it's going to cause the other guy or the other people to, pay more and take more waste into their decks, get there before they do. But if your engine isn't really working, if your deck isn't really working, you maybe get out a little bit early, but somebody else spends a little bit more time in the early game. Getting a nice tuned engine is going to, then steamroll over you and be able to do crazy stuff, towards the later of the game, and just, they don't even care about waste at that point, because their deck's so efficient already that they have set themselves up to manage all that waste. And that waste thing is really awesome, because yes, it's kind of got sort of an environmental theme to the waste. You lay tracks, or you've generated some garbage, or you built, you buy a tower or a skyscraper. Those are the yellow cards that give you points, and it's going to generate waste. But in some ways, it's not just waste. It's just basically sort of like, as your company gets bigger and more unwieldy and more unmanageable, it's just all of that sort of detritus of mentality that kind of happens as companies get bigger. So that's a very, very thematic little element there. And getting back to those yellow cards, that's another sort of dynamic that's really cool. Now, that's basically like Dominion. You're buying your provinces and your duchies and all that stuff. But I like how they left that in there in contrast to the board again. Because as the game kind of goes along and you sort of, you've built your railroad network out quite a bit, there's not really some places that are that great to get into, and some, depending on how that board kind of shapes out. So people will kind of start buying those, and those points are not to be neglected there. Those can be valuable points there. And so it keeps that aspect of Dominion that, when I first saw it, I was like, God, it's just like Dominion. You get your deck and you build you buy your victory point cards, but because of that sort of, tension or paradox of, tuning your deck versus, having good board position and sort of getting in at the right time on different places of the board, that works really well together. Having those victory point cards, that's just those static cards, versus, having the points on the board. I can't say enough about this. And, I haven't even played with every single card, in those 30 cards that are there. But I really hope they come out with expansions. I really hope they kind of tweak this a little bit and really kind of, explore the space here, because I think there's a lot of room to grow here, and maybe add some other board components, some other, stuff that's happening on the board that you can get involved with. Because I think that's a great tension between, okay, I've got an engine, I'm building my little engine in solitaire mode over here, trying to get as efficient as possible based on those random 8 cards that come up, which is the great part about Dominion, especially when the first few times you play that game, or the first 100 times, you've really got to really fine tune and spend that, minute or two before the game starts to say, okay, this is the path I'm going to take. I'm going to build my deck for this. but you've got that sort of pre-planning strategic kind of thing happening. And then you've got the reactions on the board to, oh, okay, I've got to go work through here. There's a wall here. I've got to kind of go around this way. So I'm going to have to spend, some time getting out there early. But I'm going to take on all this waste when I do that. So that's going to make my deck building so much harder and much more unwieldy. I mean, it's just great. So I can't wait to see what they add to it. Hopefully they add on a lot to this game. And then the last thing I want to talk about is I find this game actually really, really thematic. I did not expect that. And that's the thing that really sort of took me back, and I was like, okay, wait a minute here. There's something special happening here, because like I said, with the engine building of the deck, that's definitely like your company, right? And you definitely have that sort of influence on the economy around the rail network. And that's something that you kind of see in a lot of your train games, like your 18XX games, and I'm losing the, some of your Winsome games, right? So you have that sort of, your company has a participation in the surrounding economy of the sort of economic network that you're building. And a lot of the cards are thematically named. I know they're just names of cards, but the way they kind of work within the deck, within your company, really make a lot of sense. And you have this very, very interesting interaction on the board with, trying to get to certain areas, get to some of those bigger towns where you're going to get a lot of points. And especially with more than 2 players. Now, 2 players I think plays great, actually. I think it plays fantastic with 2, because you don't really have a lot of board interaction, but you have sort of the race of, dropping out your cubes in that sense. So I think it still works. It's not necessarily, have a lot of those drawbacks that you have with like a 2. If it was like an area control thing, it's not really, that wouldn't really work, but you have the race of it, so the 2 player still really works. But with the 3 and 4 player, you have a lot of that board dynamics that's in great games like Steam and things like that. So that whole thematic thing, I want to get back to that, just really works. So, I mean, I think this game is going to be a special one this year. So anyway, that's number 200. Whatever the other game was, doesn't matter. This is the one. Okay, thanks.